Morning, everyone. Kind of give you the overview of how the Toro ended up. Went pretty good. Still got to clean the cylinders out. Gonna pull the lifters out, inspect those, make sure they look good. See if I can see the cam lobes, everything in there. Lifters are in here. If I can stick my finger in here, obviously they come out pretty easy. Not too extensive, not too crazy. Obviously inline 4 pump, mechanical injection. This is the water pump housing, water pump, alternator. Down there's a starter. If a lot of you guys are looking, it looks pretty familiar to what we've been doing in class with 5.9 Cummins, 8.3 Cummins in the combine. So it's pretty interesting how everything kind of just blends together. Over here we have the turbo. Obviously it's not the biggest turbo we've seen in class or part of class. Pretty small. Obviously, you know, same things apply. You know, it has turbo feed, turbo drain on the bottom, exhaust housing, compressor housing. This is where the muffler bolts to keep it quiet down. If you can tell, it's a 4-cylinder and it has 8 valve springs, so obviously that means it's a 2-valve per cylinder engine. So one's exhaust, one's intake. You guys, we've talked about that quite a bit in class. Pretty neat little engine. It's really neat. Very simple, not too complex. Thermostat housing goes here. You leave that on. I just took this off to kind of look inside there. Obviously it's got to come off, so we can take it to the machine shop, make sure everything's flat and smooth, because we don't want it to have issues again. But straight edge of the block is in real good shape still, so that's awesome. That makes me feel pretty good. You can kind of see the way the piston is designed. It's got valve reliefs cut for the intake and exhaust valves, and it also has the pistons cut a little differently where the injector lies. So that's where it's kind of differs between like a 5.9 and 8.3 Cummins, is in the fact that it's an IDI. It's indirect injected. That means the fuel's not directly injected into the engine. It's injected in the cylinder head, and that's where all the power is made during the power stroke. So it's not directly sprayed into the bowl. It's actually sprayed into the bowl that's inside of the cylinder head. So we look around the table. I think some of you see some very familiar things. Hopefully you do, at least. Obviously, we should know what these are. Our push rods, a little smaller than, you know, typical diesel engines. Obviously we got our intake and exhaust rocker arms. So obviously there's 2 per, and these are adjustable. Obviously we can tell there. Another thing it has is glow plugs. Obviously diesels have glow plugs, remember that. So that helps warm the engine up. It also serves as a couple other purposes as well, with this IDI. And then these are the injectors. I know it's going to be hard to tell because I don't got the best camera, but these injectors definitely look a little different. They have a little nozzle sticking out. And this is kind of how everything works. We'll talk about it more in our e-learning classes online. Lectude has a pretty good setup for that, so please take a look at that. Intake manifold, that's where all the clean compressed air goes after it's force inducted with the turbo. Thermostat housing, thermostat goes in there. That goes over it, goes to the upper side of the radiator. So obviously the thermostat restricts it. You know, if it's got a 180-degree thermostat, the thermostat stays closed, lets all the coolant, free flow in the engine block and cylinder head. And then once it hits that temperature, it opens, releases it into the radiator to cool it. So it's very, very common. This is kind of one thing I figured you'd find interesting. On the left is the cylinder head bolt for this. It has 18 head bolts. On the right is for an ISX Cummins or an X15 Cummins cylinder head bolt. So they are, if you can tell, they little different size, but functions the same. Other thing, injection lines goes from the injection pump to the injectors. Obviously, it's an inline pump, so that means each cylinder, each injector gets a cylinder line. Since it is an inline pump, it's not obviously a common rail. It uses one rail, one line from the injection pump to the rail. So we're just waiting on parts now. I just kind of want to give you an overview. This line here, this is the glow plug wiring. So that's given 12 volts, to help warm the engine up. Hits it with 12 volts. Obviously, if you guys remember with our lectures, you put 12 volts to a glow plug, it'll get real hot, get north of 1,000 degrees to help heat the engine, get that air intake temp up, make it a little easier to start. So this is pretty much where we're at right now this morning. So Toro's supposed to be sending the parts to us so we can put it back together. Like I said, almost every golf course has one of these mowers. They might have half a dozen of them, to be honest. So it is a pretty neat little gig. Obviously, Kubota makes tractors, things like that. These engines can be found in skid steers, mini excavators, all those things. Obviously, this is going to be paid. This is a diesel mechanic wage, so keep that in mind. That this still takes a good bit of knowledge to be able to do. It's just a smaller engine. Obviously, it's a little easier than working on a car, so I definitely enjoy doing it. Or a pickup, I definitely enjoy it doing more than a pickup. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. So I'm just gonna finish cleaning some stuff up, get the cylinder head off the machine shop, make sure it's flat, make sure there's no cracks in the cylinder head, things like that. Make sure all the valves are good, not bent, things like that. So hopefully you guys have a good rest of your week, and just stay safe with the COVID-19 stuff going on.